Hey, this is Northy from Epic Flail. Welcome to the show. This is a 30-minute version of the 4-hour, well, it was just under 4 hours, game that we had last night live on the stream. Myself there on the right, celebrating that I finally get to play a game as Liam produces on the desk against Luke. I was playing Imperial Knights against Luke's Gene Stealer cult. So, yeah, this is going to be a shortened version of that game with lots of views from the top. Next week, we're getting a 4K camera, so the top-down quality is going to be so much better. We've got weekly podcasts that are kicking off now and other 40K content, so please, while you're here, like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. We just started out, but things are getting better and better each week. Okay, let's have a look at the list then. So I was playing a Imperial Knights list. I had a Castellan with the Mysterious Guardian enchantment, which allows me to disappear and reappear. You will be seeing that in the game, funnily enough. A Knight Paladin with the Unyielding Paragon, which is -1 AP. Then I had 2 Helverins with autocannons and 4 Warclaves. This was a list that I built in 9th and I've kind of brought over to 10th. I'm quite enjoying it. I'll kind of chat about the list as we get into the game. Obviously, this was straight off the back of the nerfs from yesterday, so it was quite an interesting game, just rolling this list out without changing it straight into the nerfs. Luke and his never-ending Gene Stealer Cult's army. I mean, I'm not going to read through every single one on the screen, but he actually had a really... I'll show a video of the actual army in a second. He's kind of converted this and had it all as Skaven, which is quite interesting. But it was my first game against Gene Stealer's Cults, so it was actually like really confusing because everything that you kind of seen on the screen wasn't quite... it wasn't the standard Game Workshop model on the table. It looks really cool, though. There's loads of like mad Skaven. But it's a decent list. You know, you can see there all the characters that he had, causing all sorts of carnage. He's got, as predicted, some bombs in there. He's got the hybrids with mining lasers, 3 units of them, 4 units of them. He's got the aberrants, which you'll see in a second, big rat boys with their power weapons. The Ridge Runners, which are converted into the Skaven wheels of, what is it, the Wheel of Doom, what are they called? But yeah, the Ridge Runners are a couple of Skaven Doom wheels. All right, so this is my army. Yeah, little yellow and black theme. There you go, little red top. I kind of like the yellow and black, and being colourblind, like the stark changing the 2 colours is quite pleasing for my eyes, to be honest. All right, this is Luke's army coming up. As you can see, it is a Gene Stealer cult army, but they're also rat men. So at times in the battle for me, it was quite difficult to know what was what, but they look really cool. They're converted really nice. So the Doom wheels are the Ridge Runners. Those big lads at the back, the Rat Ogres, are the Aberrants, and then you can kind of see the hybrids that have got the seismic cannons dotted about in there. And obviously he's got his demolition boys charging around, which are a nightmare. So the mission was Purge the Foe. This ended up being quite a good one for me because it's difficult for Luke to score in this. You obviously get extra points for killing units, and because I'm playing Knights and a bit of a skew list, lots of vehicles, that did make it quite challenging for Luke, as you'll see through the game. Although it didn't stop him doing well by any means, but it's a decent draw for Knights, is Purge the Flow. As you can see, the deployment is search and destroy, so there's me in this bottom corner and Luke in the top corner. So I'm just thinking this turn, I didn't really want to go first. I couldn't see anything. The new towering rules meant that it's incredibly difficult for me to get sight of anything, and Luke had deployed most of his army off the board. So what I wanted to do was just assert myself quite strongly. I got Assassination, which is just no way I'm going to be able to do Assassination, but I did hold on to it because I thought Luke's going to start having to start revealing. He's got a lot of characters in his list and they're going to have to appear at some point. So I thought I'd hold on to it for a turn just to see what he did. I thought I'd assert myself in the middle of the board and knew in my head that in Luke's turn I was going to take the Castellan off the board and put him into deep strike and then bring him down likely on that top objective. My plan here was to kind of put a lot of pressure on the central and top objective, knowing that that right-hand objective where the aberrants were, that's just going to be a bit of a killing zone, a killing field for Luke. So I was going to have to feed him some stuff in that zone and then hold the other 2 really strongly. So the Paladin, I was thinking about just holding him in that central position, but I'd not played Gene Stealer Cults before, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect. So I kind of held my line, pushed into the centre, went over to Luke's turn, and here he's just moving the Ridge Runner up. He didn't bring anything else down. He just kept everything off the board, shuffled some bits about, trying to keep himself happy in that back objective ticking over. I'll tell you what missions he drew in a second when it flips back to the other camera and chat through that. But yeah, he's just doing a little bit of shuffling. Both turns, first turns, were super cagey, and because the new towering rule, as I mentioned a second ago, it just made it really difficult to start doing anything in the first turn. So Luke got investigate signals and extend battle lines. I scored 4 for area denial on my turn. Luke here was just popping off some shots from his ridge runners into my jack in the middle. I think he ends up doing just like 1 damage. I mean, those guns aren't particularly amazing against my Warglaives. He'd never really expected to do a lot. Luke, quite a smart move here, just puts the aberrants 1.1 inches away from the terrain, which means that I can't actually charge them, which made the objective very frustrating at that point. I basically just have to put something in that zone for Luke to then kill. So end of Luke's turn, he gets 9 for investigate signals and extend battle lines, and the turn comes back over to me. I get storm hostile objective and tempting target. Now, I could get storm hostile objective and tempting target because Luke named that bottom objective, which makes sense. Any other would have just been absolutely daft. So I knew that if I put the Warglaive in that zone, I would get it off him because he's only got like a couple of aberrants on that bottom objective. I also, at the end of Luke's turn, activated Mysterious Guardian and put the Castellan into Deep Strike, ready to bring him down this turn and see what he could do. Here I move that Warglaive up so I can get line of sight to that back Ridge Runner, and I put another Warglaive in the zone. I'm just thinking here, like, I need to pressure both those zones, that top and central zone. I really need to pressure that, knowing that the bottom zone is going to be a little bit of a grinder for me, that I'm just going to put that Warglaive there. In Luke's turn, they're going to come out and absolutely whack him. They're going to smash him, but I wanted to put that model there to deny Luke that primary and kind of force him to bring them out of cover, well, out of the terrain, so I can actually see them, and also start bringing the rest of his army down. I knew that in Luke's second turn, a lot was going to come down, and I was going to have a difficult time of it. But I felt that if I deployed kind of quite bricky, you see, I've got the 4 Warglaives and Helverins all kind of making a bit of a square. I'm trying to just do that to make it as hard as I can for Luke to just drop loads of stuff down in my back line. You'll see in a second how successful that was when Luke's army starts flying down everywhere. And this is just my Warglaive, just taking some shots, doing some things. You can see the Castellan now comes down at the very top objective, and I actually got rid of Assassination. So I got rid of Assassination, knowing that I'm going to score max on that bottom objective as a tempting target and storm hostile objective. But the Castellan actually could come down and see Luke's general and the unit he was in. So, I don't know, I kind of did alright secondary-wise on this turn, but I maybe could have held on to Assassination and tried to kill the general, because it's quite a juicy target, the Castellan just like opening all up. So one of the difficult things about Genestealer cults was just working out what they can actually do and where they can come down. They're such an army that can catch you off guard. So I was kind of going in blind because I'd not played against them before, but I just knew that I really needed to hold my position on those main primaries and not also at the same time not just have Luke's army appear in my back lines and cause absolute chaos. So I think Luke here is thinking about rapid ingress, and he thinks about bringing that unit down there to try and deny me that back primary. But then we looked at it and he either puts them there and gets shot or puts them there and gets charged. So he kind of measured it out and was like, okay, yeah, this is not good, because the way in which I'd put the Paladin meant he could probably just walk around, well, charge around and beat him up. Or if you put them where he's there, they get shot and charged by the Helverin. And the Helverins don't do amazing damage, but appreciate that tank shock is a thing, and it's quite good. So, score-wise, I got, what did I get, 6 on the primary, puts me up onto, on the secondaries, puts me up to 23. Flicks back to Luke, I'm kind of denying him primaries quite well, so he's only on 4 on his primary, but what he predictably has done there is brought the Aberrants out, ready to smash up that Warglaive. There wasn't really much I could do about that. That was kind of expected. There's not really any way for me to avoid that. I didn't want to ignore the zone. I wanted to stop him scoring on primary, and I kind of teed up the Helverin behind, so at least it could either just feed that side of the board and just keep me in it, or go in and tank shot those Aberrants. So the Aberrants are pretty difficult to kill, as I discovered last night. So Luke here begins the process in his turn of dropping all his stuff absolutely everywhere in a second. He's just messing around at the moment, moving his Ridge Runners into places where they're not going to get shot by the Castellan, try to just keep them safe, but also keep them relevant. Which is difficult when you've got that Castellan in the back line. I kind of realised at this point that the Warglaive that I've got on that top left-hand side is not amazingly placed. Yeah, it's holding me that primary, but it's not really doing a great deal. It's not playing a very active role. But again, against Gene Stealer Cults, you just don't know where they're going to come from. And Imperial Knights, they've got decent speed on those vehicles, but the terrain, it's just so difficult to get over the terrain. You can't go through the terrain as a vehicle. You've got to go round it. So sometimes when you see a knight positioned like that, it is a little bit annoying. And it wouldn't, it's not like Luke. Luke could put like a really valuable unit in a spot like that, and it's amazing, like he was doing with the Aberrants, whereas for me, that's fairly wasted. It's got a little side cam shot there, and now we hit the end of Luke's movement, and now we begin the process of him bringing his tray out and dropping models absolutely everywhere. So his demolition guys, his units with the demolition satchels, the little bags of the fun bags came down. So that's one unit there that had demolition charges, and then another one behind. And what Luke's doing there is the stratagem that allows him to place within 3 inches. So he's measuring 3 inches there rather than 9. He obviously can't charge, but what he can do is he can load that objective up. So watching this game back and reflecting, what I should have done is deploy the 2 Warglaives closer together to create a 3-inch bubble that stops Luke putting anything on that objective. But this is how you learn, watching your games back and thinking about what you did, what you could have done differently. So they should have been closer together to stop that happening, and that way I would still take an absolute pasting, but it would be harder for Luke to get that objective from me. But I didn't quite know what to expect from GSC Cults because I'd not played them before. So he's got more units coming down. All these boys, all the neophyte hybrids are coming down all over the place with the mining lasers and seismic cannons, and he's just lining them up so that they can lever those 2 jacks on the zone. Luke's plan here was to just do as much damage as he could, score as much as he could on the primary, get the 4 points for killing units on primary, and ideally he wanted to kill more than me. So he's brought those guys down there. More stuff happening, more stuff coming down. Lots of measuring. GSC Cults are definitely an army where you have to be mobile and get around that table. At this point, he was kind of seeing if he could get anything in that back corner and what that would look like. So I was kind of measuring it for him and seeing if he could get anything on my back objective. But it was pretty difficult just from where they both were. He definitely couldn't get anything on the zone, obviously. Unless he did the 3-inch deploy thing, but he's already done that in the centre. And yeah, he was kind of sitting on two control points. He'd drawn Secure, No Man's Land and Cleanse. So he needs to kill stuff on objectives and secure zones in the middle. So he feels fairly confident about doing that at this point because he's got the Aberrants that are going to charge into the Warglaive on the bottom, and he's got 2 units with the Demolition Boys ready to go. And he's got the characters in there, what are they called? The lads that basically give them extra damage. The Biophagus, are those the guys? No, it's the Primus. It's the Primus that basically make them hit even harder. Again, first time I'm playing GSC Cults, so it was a bit of a learning experience. At this point, Liam did something quite incredible, which he managed to flip the camera the other way. So now we're looking at this from Luke's point of view. So I'm now in that top corner, and we're down on Luke's side of the board. So the Aberrants here charge into the Jack, and as you can see, his shooting was incredibly effective. He blew up both the Jacks in the centre of the board with the demolition charges. They just blew them to pieces, completely wiped them out. And here we're doing the combat on that top Warglaive, which I can see it's got taken 6 at the moment. I mean, it didn't go that well for Luke. He ended up leaving it on 1 wound. Didn't go that amazing, which he kind of really needed for I think it was Cleanse that he needed that for. So that kind of did him over a little bit and was quite rough. Ended up putting him on 22 points at the end of that turn. And then it flipped back to me, and I got engage on all fronts and bring it down. Bring it down, I just couldn't see any vehicles. There's just nothing on the cards. He does have vehicles, obviously he's got the Ridge Runners, but I just couldn't see them, so that was a fairly frustrating one to draw. Engage on all fronts was doable, certainly on 3/4 of the board. And what I was really thinking about here was, so this was my turn, what's the point of leaving that Warglaive in combat with the Aberrants? Because he's going to die, it's only on 1 wound, and what I would rather do is make it fall back. If he doesn't overwatch it, which he didn't, then it's going to score. It's going to be one of the units for engaging all fronts. And also, like, Luke's got that primary anyway, so I just ended up road blocking it. And there's nothing more annoying than having to waste resources on a vehicle that's only got one wound, particularly when I've got, like, rotate iron shields and could either get a 4-up invuln or a natural 5-up, so make it very frustrating. Here I'm just being really clear with my measurement, because I was moving the paladin up to middle to charge the demolition boys that are holding that objective in the centre. So I've just been really clear with Luke that he was happy with it. Ended up needing like a 2 or a 3-inch charge, but still, I think it's important when you're moving big vehicles or just models around terrain that you be really precise for your opponents. I just wanted to measure that out. We had the time. And then here I'm wondering what to do with the Helverin. Does he stay there and roadblock and get in the way, or does he drop back on the objective and shoot? So in the end, like, leaving him there is not the best idea because he's just not playing an active role in the game. With knights, when you've got a low model count, you want your models to be on objectives and relevant. You don't want them just wandering off. So I think I ended up moving him back and getting him. I don't think I had enough movement to end up touching the objective, but I did have enough movement to stand there and have a firing line on the aberrants. This guy kind of came around the corner, got line of sight on the aberrants. What I didn't know at this stage was that Luke had a stratagem that once you've shot at it, stops you shooting at it again. So that was kind of I didn't realise that and kind of shot with the wrong unit, which you'll see in a second. Castellan moves round to there just to, like, kill some stuff, drop some units. I'm thinking I want to do well on primary, so I need to be looking for opportunity to just kill units and wipe them out. And here I'm thinking the Paladin's going to charge into that central unit. What I didn't want to do was shoot that central unit because Luke would set models off from the front of it and make my charge longer. So I was like, I'll just leave that unit and just blow it up with a Paladin. Don't shoot it and put all my shots everywhere else. Again, here I'm just being really clear about my movement with the Warglaive running around and getting into that zone. I wanted another model in there so the Castellan could maybe wander off into Luke's side of the board for, you know, different secondaries and stuff that you draw. So I just wanted to bring that Warglaive around so it felt a bit more relevant. So here we start doing a bunch of shooting. Just try to kill as much as I can, try and set models off the board. But this is where I think I shot the aberrants, and then Luke played a stratagem which stopped me shooting at them. Again, they're quite hard to kill anyway, and then when you can't shoot them again, obviously it's fairly annoying. So this is just Helverins firing autocannons at that unit, seeing what I could do. I don't think I set the world on fire. I think I maybe killed one or something, or just drop the wounds down. That's me checking line of sight to see what he can see, what else he can shoot at. So shooting-wise, I think this was a fairly decent turn. I didn't do awful. There's a little side cam again. You can see Luke's Ridge Runners hiding in the terrain, keeping their head down. And here, we're just firing the stubber, seeing what I can get. The knight that's on one wound is the one that fell back and has just stood there like a chump, not really doing anything. But again, just making it annoying for Luke, meaning that Luke has to waste resources in just blowing that up in his turn and, you know, just getting in the way and stopping him easily wander up, to my primary. So I'm just thinking about what to do with the Castellan, and then as you can see, I jumped forward a little bit, and I blasted that unit, scored myself some points. Castellan had a good time. The Paladin, in the end, has just stood there with that demolition squad unit. The thinking for that was, if I did wipe, I had that zone anyway, but if I wiped them out and killed them, then they're just going to come back with demolition charges. So I ended up just kind of leaving it as it was. And you can see Luke here actually did the classic Gene Stealer thing of taking over your turn and started dropping stuff in my back line. So on that back objective, he brought a unit in, and you can see to where the right of where his hand is now, there's another unit. So in response to that, I believe I overwatched on that unit to try and drop it under the OC, so I take it back off him. But then it was pointed out to me that Luke can just bring models back, like, straight into the unit, so it would literally be completely pointless experience. So Luke was like, oh, you didn't even realise that was a thing. So, and we also weren't sure. There was, like, the chat was saying that LGT had ruled it so that it's absolutely fine, that you do bring them back. But it was, apparently there's a Gene Stealer Facebook group that says otherwise. But anyway, it didn't really matter. We were happy with how it was. And we put the models back in the unit. So Luke now got that primary from me, and now he's just dropping the rest of his units everywhere. In fact, this might actually still be the end of my turn, as he's just bringing all this stuff back in. Alright, here we go. So, over to Luke. Score at this point, I was kind of pushing ahead a little bit on primaries and secondaries over Luke, because I could assert myself in the middle, and I was getting decent secondaries. Alright, so Luke drew overwhelming force and capture enemy outpost. So capture enemy outpost is good for him because he's already got that and got a unit down there. So the big moment really in this turn is Luke didn't manage to kill that Helverin, so it came back to me, and he didn't particularly score well because he couldn't capture that enemy outpost. And then Liam also realised he wasn't adding the primary, so the scores correct themselves. The scores then get to what they should be, which is 46-42 to me. The Castellan here is just going absolutely to town, trying to kill as much as he can on that central. I think I was just levering that central unit because I got deploy, teleport home and secure no man's land. So the real decision as to like, do I just have the paladin stand there and do secure no man's land, like so many points just doing nothing? But because the score was so close, it did actually feel like points well spent, and the Castellan instead absolutely levered that unit in the middle to try and get me some points on the primer, just making sure I kill units. The Helverins shot and didn't do a great deal, and the Warglaive shot and didn't really do any much. So it kind of flipped back to Luke with me up by 12 points. And Luke, again, he drew Storm Hostile Objective and no prisoners. So he needs to get that objective from me and kill as much as he can, basically. Just try and delete as much stuff as possible. So the game I kind of felt fairly good at this point in the game because even though it's Luke's turn still to go, it was difficult for him to, after he'd done the demolition charges, it was just quite difficult for him to kill the jacks, and I'd rotate iron shields. I was being quite careful with my CP, so I felt in a decent position, but I was persistently worried about the last turn and Luke just coming down and scoring absolutely loads. So what he does here is he pushes that top objective to try and take it from me so he can get Storm Hostile Objective. Those guys just shuffle, getting ready to shoot some vehicles and try and kill some stuff. So just a bit of shuffling again. These guys were all coming down, so he was just measuring 9 inches all the time to make sure he didn't get within 9, because he was persistently throughout the whole turn doing his redeploys and dropping these guys back down, which is the Gene Stealer way, right? That's the Gene Stealer life. So he's just forever measuring 9 inches. A lot of thinking for Gene Stealer cults. Definitely an army where you need to be constantly focused on what the scores are, what the mission is, and how you can get more points, which feels a daft thing to say, but I guess you want to be good at the game, you've always got to have that in your head. But particularly with Gene Stealer cults, you've got to really work out how in those last couple of turns you can really maximise your points and not drift off. Have that really big second turn, and then delete as much as you can, and then make sure you're really bringing stuff down, ingressing at the right point. Deep striking units in places by which they can cap objectives. So that's another unit there. Luke was just checking, making sure it's within 9, and then here comes his shot. So again, this was a turn actually where I think he really wanted to kill the Helverin. Before he just did 5 wounds to it on the previous turn, whereas this was one where he definitely needed to die. But as you can see, he did 11, so he left it on 1, which is incredibly difficult for him and really stopped him getting that Storm Hostile Objective. And no prisoners, because I actually had more points than him, because I had 2 Helverins on and he didn't kill either. He didn't score Storm Hostile Objective, and he didn't get many for no prisoners because he didn't kill any jacks. So then it comes back to me. I got behind enemy lines, which I just needed to roll a 3 or a 4 on the Castellan, I think, to get the Castellan into enemy lines. So I was like, right, the Castellan can get into Luke's territory, I'll score there. Capture any outpost, I wasn't ever going to get that. I just thought there's no way that's happening. But this was a turn 5, so I just knew I needed to roll well on the Castellan and get as much as I could kill-wise. So I had a CP reroll on the Castellan because I rolled like a 1, rolled it again and rolled a 2. So I actually couldn't score behind enemy lines or capture enemy outposts. So at that point, I realised that my best ploy was just to kill as much as possible and deny Luke primary as much as possible. But that really didn't involve doing a great deal because the Paladin is pretty safe in the middle. Like, there's not, like, that's very difficult for him to drop. The Castellan just ended up staying there and still touching the zone. What I didn't want to do is just move the Castellan off stupidly and make that objective easier for Luke to get with all the stuff that's going to come back. So instead, just anything that could shoot, shot, and I tried to do as much damage to just wipe out a unit. There's the Aberrants there that were getting shot, just because there's only like 3 of them left or something, but I ended up not really doing a great deal of damage to them. Not changing a great deal. And then it went back to Luke. Put me on 74. Luke got Assassination, which meant he needed to kill the Paladin in the middle, and deploy Teleporter Homer, which was much more achievable than him trying to kill my big lad in the middle. So Luke, obviously, the ongoing theme with Dreamstiller Cults is you kill stuff, they get a blip, they bring stuff back. It's just a never-ending cycle. He was rolling for it and was getting it every time. So even with the nerfs, he was still getting, I think he was getting those 5-ups, sometimes 4-ups, depending if they were battle line. And here, what you see Luke do is just end up surrounding that Paladin and just desperately trying to drop it. But it's a big ask. It's a big ask because to shoot in it, it's got a 5-up invuln that I can drop to a 4-up for 1 CP. And it also has Unyielding Paragon, so it's just -1 AP, which meant a lot of these attacks were pretty rough for Luke. Ended up getting a demo charge back in. Those guys just came in within 3 inches, so they're going to lob demo charges at it. And everything else just kind of swamped up and surrounded it, ready to go in and kill what they could. I think by this stage in the game, because I had such a strong lead, Luke knew it was fairly long shot and quite difficult, but he thought if I could kill that, at least try and get Assassination. And obviously because this is the 5th turn and he went 2nd, then he's scoring at the end of the turn. So he thought if he could kill it, he could get that top primary and that middle primary, but he knew it was a fairly tall ask. So Luke ends up charging with the Aberrants, charging with as much as he can, and basically getting into melee with the Paladin. All the demo charges and stuff went in, but it just wasn't enough damage, just no way of getting through. I think he did 13 points of damage and then charged. Paladin, as you can see, he's got like 22 wounds or whatever, so it was still a pretty tall order for him to drop it. But he gave it a good go, and then we totted up the final scores. My little Thug Life Ewok t-shirt on, which I was quite happy. It doesn't fit me very well, but it's all about style, isn't it, lads? Luke also always has a little write down of the scores, which is incredibly handy when you're playing people that may forget the scores constantly. But Liam did the numbers, he totted it up, and it ended up being 86 to me, and then drum roll for Luke. You ready? 69. 86, 69. Really fun game. Difficult for Luke, I think. We're getting the first turn and just being so assertive with all my stuff. Challenging for me as well because I'd not played that list before, and it's obviously something that you need to get games in. But really fun game. Data slate, feel fairly balanced in that matchup. Towering definitely is a positive change for the game. I think it was quite a negative play experience how it was before. And even though Luke passed all these rolls to see if his guys came back, there wasn't that level of certainty that exists prior to the balanced data slate. So yeah, it was a good fun game. I'll definitely be aware of the 3 inches demo charge, particularly them dropping down and taking objective off me in the future. But great opponent, fun game, and yeah, looking forward to the next one. Do like and subscribe. We've got more stuff to come. We're getting better every week. Really appreciate people that have watched all the way through the video, and I hope, look after yourself. Cheers.